Welcome everybody to another session of MasterClass Live. These are the weekly sessions that we provide members an opportunity to engage directly with instructors. For those of you not familiar, MasterClass is an online learning platform that enables anybody to learn from the best. We have a catalog of over 80 instructors, including industry leaders like Martin Scorsese, Serena Williams, Gordon Ramsay, the list goes on. My name is Davis and I am a senior creative producer here at MasterClass. And in light of the current climate, we are offering MasterClass Live to everybody, not just members, which is really exciting. Joining us today is none other than Ron Finley, who we had the pleasure of teaching a masterclass on gardening not too recently. Ron, thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you guys for having me. This is a beautiful thing, and I got to say, working with you guys have been a marvelous experience.
Well, thank you, thank you. And so, where are you right now, Ron? Can you tell me a little bit about where you're?
I'm in the deep end. That's where I'm at. I'm in my swimming pool, which is actually a garden. We do a lot of work here, presentations. Actually, sometimes we do, lunches and dinners here.
Awesome. And that is the oasis that you've created in the urban jungle, huh?
Some people call it an oasis. Sometimes I come out here and I feel like Sanford and Son. And when I come out of here, the Sanford and Son theme song playing, it's look like a junkyard sometimes. But no, I'm truly proud of what this has turned into, and the fact that it's special to a lot. It's special to a lot of people. And I want this to be normal. I want this to be the norm where you don't even think about it. This is how stuff is supposed to be. Mm-hmm. Right now we're surrounded, we'll get into that later, but everything you see here is repurposed, from the chair I'm sitting in to the planters to the dresser drawer. See if I can show you guys at some point, to the backpack. So yeah.
I love that. Fantastic. So like being a creative producer here at MasterClass, one of my favorite parts about the job is that I get to immerse myself in these crafts and areas of expertise that I'm not familiar with and learn from masters such as yourself. And I came into the class being a certified plant killer, like could not keep anything alive to save my own life.
Is that an occupation?
I think it might be. I could have done it professionally for sure. So coming out of it, I actually am proud to say that I have not one, not two, but 3 thriving houseplants, and I have one here to show you.
Congratulations.
So this is Ferdinand, and look at how happy he is.
It looks good. It's very good. It looks really. It almost doesn't even look real.
It is real. It is. He was struggling going into your shoot, and then coming out of it, he's bounced back. But so one of the things that I took away from your class that I thought was really fantastic was this thing that you have, this, I guess it's a philosophy around, how plants and people are not that different. Even down to the way that we deal with wounds, for example. And I was wondering if you could share a little bit of that with the viewers here today.
Well, I mean, we're organic. We're carbon. We turn into soil. We decompose. That's what happens to our body. But the question is, what happens to our energy? And that's what I think a lot of us, we don't go there. We don't even think about where's that energy go that we have, after this does go back into the soil. I mean, we're the same. If you a lot of times see plants in their environment that need sun, they find the sun and they will twist around and go under something and then come up if they feel the sun's there. So, I mean, they're alive. So you got to realize that everything on this planet is alive. I mean, this whole planet is alive, from the water to the mountains to the soil, and we're not taught that. We're not taught that we are a part of this planet.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that I think I've seen people take away from your class, because I can't help but read through the comments, and people are just saying, this is what we need right now. And I just think that's so exciting. And I was so pleased to be a part of it.
I'm so touched by a lot of the fact that I'm seeing so many people first are binging on the class, but then they're literally going out and a lot with their children and saying, I got an old dresser drawer. I got an old, basket. They did a potato sack. I mean, so that they're taking it immediately and going to do it. I mean, that's beautiful that you can activate people that fast. And this is something that we all need. This is something that can never be taken away from us. This is true value. you know, and it's like this, and that's what we need to see, you know. How do we change man's need for greed into man's need for seed? And that's what everything starts from seed.
Yeah. And for those of you at home who aren't familiar with what we're talking about, there's a section of Ron's class where he teaches people how to upcycle containers and things like that, or household items, into containers for plants, which is really wonderful. And we have a segment that we're going to do on that in a little bit. And before we move on to the next one, I do want to encourage everybody to get into the live chat. We're going to be answering some questions live. And so go ahead and submit them and for the chance to have Ron answer them. So going forward, one of the things that I wanted to do was play a little game with you, if you don't mind. So we have some pictures here that we're going to show you. And these were submitted by members. They have some problem plants that are struggling, not doing so hot. And I'd love for you to, one, if you can, take a guess at what that plant might be. And then two, what might be wrong with it and how they might be able to fix it. Okay. How's that sound?
Okay, sure.
All right, cool. So this one is azures.
Yeah.
So Ron.
A lot of times, sometimes they call that a corn plant. First of all, it looks like it needs some more soil. And the pot seems way too small for that plant, but it looks thirsty. You can see how the leaves are curling in. And it's cool. It looks like it's in front of a window, and that's probably what's saving it. It's the fact that it is in front of a window.
I honestly didn't even think about that looking at it, but you're absolutely right. That pot is way too small for a plant that big. Like, of course it's not doing very well.
It's actually, those plants is actually several branches. Okay. And it is a common household house plant. But still, you want to think of yourself, you know, do you want to be confined into a little bitty pot, or do you want to be put into this big box where your brain can grow, where your roots can grow, where you can thrive? And that's I think it might be holding that plant back.
Sure. And I think that's also a thing that I took away from your class, which was that, you know, it's a lot of people look at the plant's leaves and kind of can forget about the roots. Right. And, you know, you talk a lot about how things can become root bound. And that was just not even anything that had occurred to me. I'm sure that a lot of people's plants are suffering from that very ailment. Would you mind telling us a little about what it is and what they need to do to fix it?
As far as root bound, root bound, what it is?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of times when you go to the store, you'll find these plants that are, you see the roots coming out of the bottom of the plant. And that's a good sign that this plant is root bound, and that it's beyond this plant, and it should have been out of this plant a long time ago. Mm-hmm. So what happens is the plant is still growing, even though it has it needs more soil. So it's gonna grow. It's gonna grow outside the plant, and it's because one is probably looking for some more room to grow. So you take your plant out, and you will realize that the roots have wrapped around the whole plant. And so what you have to do to curtail that is take the plant out and gently release those roots, so they can grow. So they will go in the directions where they want to do. I mean, these roots are literally searching for water, searching for nourishment.
Mm-hmm. Right on. Well, thank you. I'm sure Azura's got some pointers there for how to help that one. So next up, we have a plant from Alex.
Ooh,
so Ron, guess that plant.
I don't know the name of that plant. That's another house plant, though.
Yeah.
Nope, got me.
All right, stumped him. But so what do you think might be wrong with it, though, based on what's going on with those leaves?
It looks like it might have too much water.
All right. So what about that says too much water to you?
Well, the fact that the discoloration around the leaves, you see how it's the brown spots on it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm looking at the stems too of the plant. Yeah, it looks like that could be the problem.
Too much water?
Yeah, too much water is also a problem for plants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so are there any other kind of telltale signs of too much water?
Well, I would check the roots and take it out. And if the roots are really, really soggy still, you know you have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. with that plant, because you can overwater a plant, because some plants don't take in that much water.
Mm-hmm. What's your kind of rubric for
and it could be the soil too, that the soil is not draining properly.
Got it. All right, cool. Thank you. And so next up we have a picture from Cynthia.
Oh my God.
What is going on there? And what kind of plant is it, if you can guess it?
It looks like a pepper. It's maybe a bell pepper or something.
All right.
And it's an insect. It looks like it might be some kind of aphids or something eating. It's funny, the flower is still in effect, or it could be grasshopper. Nah, looks like aphids, or no, that leaf is kind of thick, I think, for a cabbage moth. But it's either a cabbage moth, aphids, something like that. But also grasshoppers are a big problem, but that doesn't look like grasshoppers.
All right. But so knowing that it's probably a pest, what are your suggestions on how Cynthia might be able to get rid of those?
A lot of times I start with neem oil, spray the plant. It's not going to harm it. And also a lot of times a solution with Castile soap and water. A lot of times work, and sometimes I even put cayenne pepper in. I'll do that mix, and I'll put mixed cayenne pepper in it too. And bottom line with that plant, if there's ants around, if there's ants on the plant, 9 times out of 10 it's aphids, because the aphids, the ants bring the aphids to the plant, and the aphids suck the sugars out of the plants, and then the ants milk the aphids. The ants are one of the only known species that have indentured servants.
No way. So for those remedies, so are even the cayenne pepper, that's something you put in a spray bottle and would put on the leaves just as a deterrent?
Then and just blast it. You can do that, leave it on, or blast them with water, but they'll come back. That and the leaf bugs, the green leaf hoppers, which look scary. They look like some alien when they're nymphs, but then when they grow up, they're totally green and they hop from plant to plant also.
Pesky, sneaky devils.
Well, I mean, that's the thing about the garden, is a constant fight. It's a constant battle between you and the raccoons or the deers or the rats or the birds, and a bunch of other species that don't know how to share, I mean, or you'll have birds or rats come in there. They'll peck at every piece of fruit on your tree because they figure you're not going to get it. I guess they know that it's, if a bird's been on it. Yeah. But it is a constant battle. But I mean, all that stuff can be curtailed. I mean, you can have a covered garden, like you can build your beds, and you can put netting over your trees, or you can have beds that literally the frames open up and close, and you make them high, or just make an enclosure that you walk into with your garden. And if you have those kind of pest problems that you can't fix.
So do you do any of those types of things at the garden there where you are right now?
Not really, because I'm too lazy to do that. I got enough work to do.
Yeah, I got you. One of the things that you also mentioned in your class was that sometimes companion planting can also help with pests like that too. Are there any of those pointers that you'd like to share with the?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I haven't found, really a plant that repels, other plants like that. And I think a lot of the insects, like a lot of the mammals, they've gotten a lot smarter. I mean, like possums, they're supposed to be nocturnal. There's possums walking around at 12 in the afternoon. Like, it's, hey, what's up? What's up? I was in a meeting here, and somebody said, "Oh, is that your pet possum?" I'm like, hell no, I ain't no pet possum. And it's like, it's the possum just comes out bright. They're not scared anymore. Same thing with raccoons. These were things that only came out at night. Now they got so accustomed that they don't. So I found a lot of the things, truly you got to keep testing, because I think the whole ecology of the planet is changing. And we see that these animals are changing. Mm-hmm. There's always some new species of invasive plant all of a sudden, or the burrata bug that looks, that came in different colors a few years ago. That how do you deal with these? There's always going to be something. So I mean, you just, bottom line is you got to read up on it and keep up on your toes about these kind of things.
And also, I mean, one of the things that you really talk about in your class a lot is the importance of like experimentation too. Like it's, I mean,
I think that's the biggest part of a garden. Like I said, there is no mistakes. There is no failures. There's lessons. That didn't work. Let me try something else. And that's constantly, what kind of barriers could I do? What is this spray gonna work? Hey, if I mix these tobacco leaves with this, will this repel, the hornworm? And there's a lot of information that people have studied this for. There's a helicopter going by. I don't know if you guys can hear.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I mean, we're live. You're outside. Unless you can't hear me. I mean, it doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I think have changed over time, and we have to change. We have to change with them. I don't think the animal and insect kingdom still operates like it was, because you got to think the planet's not the same.
Yeah.
But I try and I test things, because I don't really want to put any kind of toxins into my soil.
Sure.
Or into my plants. And I try to use, I ain't try, I do. I use very, very safe, non-toxic things on my plants. It's like all the fertilizer is
now we're good.
Yeah, that one was loud.
Yeah.
I get from very reputable sources. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think it's a constant thing, and I think that's part of the whole gardening process and part of the creativity.
Yeah.
Of doing this is the discovery. Okay, this works. Now you can share this with your friends. Mm-hmm. But yeah, companion planting works. But a lot of times, people, if you plant lemongrass and put it with this, that hasn't seemed to, I guess the popo want to be in on the conversation. I haven't, a lot of that I haven't seen to, like, this repels this, and I guess the stuff I have around here is just too gangster, because they don't they're not scared of nothing. They're like
hardy bugs over there, or some hardy pests. Well, right. I think I'd love to move on to the next picture. We just got just a couple more. This next one is from Joel, and that's a tough one to guess unless you've got it pegged already.
Wow, that looks like plant abuse, Joe. That's I can't really see it. It's not. I thought pepper or tomato or.
Oh, and I actually see. So Joe actually had a specific question with his. So he says that is an avocado plant that he's tried to propagate into cutting, and it's just not going anywhere. Do you have any pointers for getting that type of stuff off the ground? And also for those at home that haven't seen your class, could you give them a little bit of info into how cutting works? And
how long has that been?
He didn't say how long it's been. He just says, like, I did the rooting compound and all that, and it just hasn't been working. But have you?
Well, I mean, to me, from the view, it doesn't look dead. So, and it might be that he's rushing it. The plant, because it doesn't look brown. If it was dead, it would be brown and dried out. Mm-hmm. So the plant still looks alive. And I mean, you got to think avocados, once they're even grown, they take like 7 years for you to give you fruit. I mean, I've had some here for 5 years that I started from seed. A lot of times, like, certain plants will take and certain plants won't. I mean, I have literally where I've stuck branches into the ground You know, I'm looking at an apricot tree here and a nectarine tree that I've literally took branches off a tree and stuck them in the ground. And now I have a tree. I've done it with pear trees. I've done it. Definitely you can do it with pomegranate trees. Basically try to get the suckers on the bottom, the little ones coming out the bottom, even a branch, and just plant a bunch, just stick a bunch of them in the ground. Some of them are gonna take, all of them might not take, but some of them are gonna take. I have a structure that I'm building outside, like a hut out of branches, and two of the branches from the plums, they started growing. So now I have plum trees growing from branches. So you can do that. You can do the whole thing where you graft the grafting, you know, from one tree to another one, or that works too. But yeah, I just recently, like, what's Sunday, I got some Persian mulberries branches, and I put them in soil. I've had them grow for me before. Just stick them in some nice rich soil, and all of a sudden they start growing leaves. And what you need to do is take the leaves, which I saw that he did. He took all the leaves off, which is good. You take all the leaves off, and then they'll start growing leaves back. And once those little leaves come, you know that it's still alive. Same thing with starting. You know, I have a few mango trees that I've started from seed that are doing beautiful. I had one that was doing beautiful, and all of a sudden it decided it didn't want to do no more. And right where the soil and the tree meet, it just started rotting. And I don't know if it's because I was going to transplant it too soon and took it out of its environment, because all I did was I wrap it in a paper towel, put it on in a wet paper towel, and put it in a plastic bag and blow air in there. So basically you create a greenhouse, and then you can see the roots starting to grow. And then I put it in soil, and it coming through the ground, and the roots, the leaves and everything was beautiful. So I was happy. And that was 3 months, 4 months in, and then all of a sudden, so that happens.
Yeah, I mean, it even happens to Ron Finley.
Yes.
Even he can't keep things alive.
I mean, I'm still learning. I mean, by no circumstance do I consider myself some master or something. I mean, and that's the joy that I get out of this, is the fact that I can take a branch off a tree and stick it in the ground, and it will grow most of the time. You know, or just watching plants, you know, that might start behind something, or the plants just start in your, like one time I threw a sunflower in the compost, and next thing I know, it was 100 sunflower sprouts in the compost. So and I'm like, oh, now I have another job. I have to plant all these sunflowers somewhere. And so, no, you get to see that, or the things that come to your garden that you've never planted. Like I have, you know, 3 foot tall celery growing here. I've never planted celery, and I have which stinging nettle. It's everywhere. So it's a lot of plants, and they say that the plants that come to your garden are the things that you need in your garden.
That. I love that. And for those of you at home, one of the things that just shocked me when I was creating this class with Ron is that you really can, it can be as simple as that. Like you can cut the branches off a tree.
Yeah.
You can take off the leaves, sometimes give it a rooting compound, plant it, and it will actually turn into its own tree. I mean, that just blew my mind. I haven't started growing any trees yet. I think I'm going to start with doing baby steps with the houseplants, but that's definitely next on my list. So I'd love to move on to some live questions, if you don't mind, Ron,
Sure.
submitted by people who are watching right now. And so for those of you who are just joining us, we are here with MasterClass Live with Ron Finley. We're talking about gardening. We're talking about life. We're talking about his MasterClass. And we're excited to have you here. So first up on the live questions. Let's see. Any tips on growing in an apartment that gets very little sunlight? I just planted a tomato plant and we get very little sunlight. So that is from Cassie.
Good luck, Cassie. Tomatoes need heat. They need sun. So what I can suggest is get a grow light, you know, or put it under some kind of natural light, and you can see it. That's gonna happen. But tomatoes thrive out of light, out of sunshine. They want heat, unless you have some Siberian tomatoes. They have tomatoes that grow in cold climates. Don't need that much light, but generally tomatoes want a lot of light, a lot of heat, a lot of sun.
And I was like, so how much, when it comes just in general, do vegetables tend to be more sunlight hungry, less sunlight hungry? How, like, is there any kind of like rule of thumb for trying to figure out what needs
vegetables usually like sun. I mean, there are things that you can grow in shade, but vegetables, they want some sun. I mean, but you have things that can grow year round, like a lot of the greens. Like here, I have chard all over the place, and it grows kind of all year long. And the same thing with collard greens and things like that, and different kinds of beets. You can get them, there's different beets from different temperatures, and you can get them all over. But a lot of times, they need a certain climate. I think that's why so much stuff is grown in hot houses and different kinds of growing situations. From the aquaponics, where a lot of times they're in house, and you can control the atmosphere that you want.
So it's the people who live in colder climates. They're not beyond hope in the winter?
No. Yeah, they have to eat too, and you got to realize somebody moved there in those cold climates, so they had to eat.
All right, cool. So next up, we have a question from. So this is from Albert, and he asks, "Can yellowness be the result of too much sun?" Just when it comes to plants in general, have you found that that's an indicator, or is that something else, do you think?
I haven't found that yellowness can be too much sun. On what kind of plant is the question too?
Yeah.
That's a very, very open-ended question. I haven't found that though. Yellowness it's like sometimes can be deficient in something.
Gotcha.
Not that it's too much sun. It might be deficient in some kind of nutrient. It's not that it's not getting.
I mean, that makes sense. It's kind of like sickly, something that's green, turning that, like getting a little bit like that, losing its color, just like people, like
exactly.
Just like people. When I'm not feeling well, I look I have a yellow pallor myself. So, and I usually probably if I was deficient in something. All right. So next I have a question from Tyrone, and Tyrone asked, how can I keep my compost thriving? Do you have any tips for once you've got a pile started or whatever you've got, like accelerating the process or getting it to thrive?
What a lot of people don't realize is that compost needs air. And what we found a way, I think this was developed in Davis, where they put pipes with holes in it in their compost pile. And so there's a pallet under the bottom of the pile, and it's not covered and it's not in the soil. So it's getting air all the way through the pile the whole time, and it breaks down better. When I first started making compost, I thought you just stuck it in a bucket and covered it and it would just break down. No, it rots, because what you've done, you haven't given it any air. You've removed the air, and it needs that air for it to decompose rather than rot. And it's funny because a girl online yesterday said, yeah, I learned this from Finley. I'm making my compost, and she put it in a bucket, and then she put plastic over it, and I was like, yeah. I'm like, no, it's not gonna work.
Ditch the plastic. Well, if she's watching.
Yeah, no, I told her. She knows it's good. I told her to just bury it. Just dig a hole and just bury it. It's gonna break down. Yeah. All the organisms in the soil is gonna help it break down.
One of the things that you mentioned in your class too that I found really fascinating was how worms can help with compost and just gardening in general.
Worms are some of the hardest workers in your garden. I mean, worms are a beautiful thing because one, they do vermiculture, and two, they the waste stream, they help us with that. They help us, like all of the things that would literally go into our that people put in their trash cans that wind up in the landfill. that wind up rotting instead of decomposing, we can put that back in the cycle.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we need to do. I mean, a lot of these things, there should be, I don't know, some kind of special compost bins on every corner. I mean, because a lot of times when people, you have them in the ones that are in your trash can, your green bins, a lot of people put other stuff in there, besides the stuff that should be in there. But if there was a organization or something, or just humanity, where you put the right stuff in your compost bin, it should be like it would be a beautiful thing, because that compost can go right back into our gardens. So I have several worm bins, but I also have space in the garden, as part of the garden, that there's just worms in it. I have put layers and layers of compost, of compostable food scraps and trimming from all the garden, and I just piled it up. So now if you go in there and dig your hands in that soil, it's just like thousands of worms in there that are breaking this soil down and giving all this added nutrients to the soil.
And so, like, if I'm gonna do, because I want to do this, but so do I literally like take the worms and put them with my plants, or is that counterproductive? Do I want them to? Are they strictly for compost? Like,
no. They're gonna wind up, when they're in their compost, they're gonna wind up in your plants, which is cool, because they're aerating. They're not gonna harm your plants. What they wind up doing is aerating your soil, because they're moving and making holes through your soil. But what you would do is you would have a worm container, or a worm bin, or like a special section in your garden that you built for the worms.
mm-hmm.
What I do, I have cardboard, and I'll put food scraps, I'll put coffee grounds, and then I might even put a coffee, one of those big coffee bags, and then I'll put more. So I just layer it and layer it and layer it, and you'll have the most luxurious, sexy soil you've ever seen in your life.
I love that. All right, well, Tyrone, get you some worms. That's the feedback, and aerate it. The two things there. Let's see. So we have a question from, let me see. Okay, so this is from Keisha. Do you change the soil out of a raised garden bed, or do you add more soil, or just throw some compost in the mix before replanting more veggies? So it sounds like what she's interested in is like, do you switch out the soil entirely, like between harvests or plantings? Like, how do you navigate that situation?
I don't switch out the soil, and we must realize that plants eat soil. That's what they do. That's what the roots do. They literally eat the soil. That's why you'll notice that your soil levels go down. You replenish that soil, or you regenerate it with different nutrients like worm castings and compost. That's what I do. I never throw soil. I mean, I used to have people that you work in their garden, and they want it every time you come. They want it all new soil, and I'm like, I'm not throwing this soil away. I take it and put it in the back of the truck and give it to somebody, or I'll use it in my garden. But no, don't throw away soil.
I got it.
It still has life in it.
And so for that, like between harvests, maybe just like, should she break it up, but just add compost, keep the soil as it is, and then maybe break it up or something like that?
Well, I would get a garden fork in her beds, and I would add some new soil depending on the levels, but I would also add some more nutrients. I would, you got bone meal and blood meal and all kinds of other things that you can put to, help revitalize your soil. Some people even put, cow manure, chicken manure, all this nitrogen back into your soil.
Gotcha.
No, but throw it away is not throwing it away for me is not an option. Just build it back up, put the things back in it that have been depleted.
Cool. And so that was bone meal and blood meal for those at home who might want to try and go out and buy some or find some?
Yeah, but I mean, all of that, bone meal, blood meal, worm castings, coffee grounds, all of these things add nitrogen, which is to your soil. And that's what I, but bottom line, make your own compost,
Yeah. Keisha, there you have it. And actually, just out of my own personal curiosity, how long does it take compost to make, or how long does it take to make compost? Excuse me.
It depends on how you it depends on the technique you use. I mean, there's this Jedi method, the Korean natural farming. You guys should look that up. It's like seriously some Jedi stuff. And it's, I mean, I've seen an 8-inch compost pile heat up to 130 degrees overnight. It's magic. But, you know, a lot of compost can take from, you know, depending on if you turn it or not, it could take from four months to a year, depending, you know, but it's gonna break down. Just like if you just put a pile of leaves somewhere, just a pile of leaves and leave it, it's gonna break down. If you move it, you're gonna have soil under there from these leaves breaking down. And a lot of times that's what I do in the garden is I'll stack, like I don't even put a barrier around it. I'll just make a nice mound and just keep layering it with carbons, nitrogens. And then you can watch that stack just completely go down when it has its breaking down. Therefore, you don't have to take it anywhere. I have a lot of piles in the garden on the street. That way you don't need a wheelbarrow. You just put it right where it is. You can move it. And that's another way. It's compost is going to happen, period. You know, it happens. It's going to be slow. And if you use certain techniques, it's going to be fast. If you turn it, you know, a lot of people, like, you don't want it sopping wet, but you do want it wet. You want it wet, and you want it. Two things that I found, you want it wet, but you also want air through it. You want it to aerate. And that's where the turning comes in. If you turn it, you're putting the stuff that's already broken down on top and the stuff that hasn't on the bottom.
Right on. Cool. Thank you, Ron. All right. I think we're going to do a couple more live questions, and then we're going to move on to our next little part of our conversation. So let me see. Well, okay. So Brooke wanted to know, how often should you fertilize a garden, and what are your favorite fertilizers?
How often do I fertilize the garden?
Yep.
I mean, a lot. I mean, my favorite fertilizers are compost and worm castings. I mean, I have this thing, I don't like bringing stuff in and spending money like that. Certain things, yeah, that you might need it. They have special, you know, they have special fertilizers for citrus trees, or special fertilizers for roses, and all it is like they're tweaking maybe the nitrogen or phosphorus in the thing. So my whole thing is, who's doing that in the forest? You know, it's too much nitrogen. Back off on the, you know, on the carbon. No, we don't need that much, you know, phosphorus. It's like, who's doing that in the forest?
Yeah.
That's how I think. No one's doing. I think the plant's going to take what it needs. Yeah, there's certain things that you can't screw up, but be like the forest is what I try to do. So my go-to for us fertilizer is compost and worm castings mostly. And a lot of times on berries and things, I'll put coffee grounds, or, you know, get some pine needles. And even if you use mulch is a thing, especially if you're in a climate like Los Angeles or you know, somewhere in Phoenix or somewhere. Mulch, like maybe 2 inches of mulch, which can be leaves, can be hard wood chips, not the painted wood chips that you get. You don't want to put that in your garden. And I don't even know why they sell that. I guess, yeah, I know why they sell it, because it makes your garden looks, I guess, colorful and cute. But do you want paint on your food? And what is that chemical that they're painting it with? So just get natural wood chips. And one of the things is, you have a neighborhood get together and get a whole truckload of the guys who trim the trees. They'll be glad to dump a truckload of that on you, because they have to pay to dump it. So they'd be glad to dump it in your front yard or in the street, and your neighbors could have all of this mulch, because that's what I've done too.
That's awesome. Yes, I mean, if you see somebody and you happen to have the space for that, tap them on the shoulder and see if they'll give you their mulch.
Yeah, because I mean, the bottom line is putting all of this stuff that came out of the earth back into the earth. That's what it is. And you think that's what happens in the forest. No one's, there, oh, I need to pull this weed, or I need to, move this, or what if when it falls and it's in a certain place, it grows. And that's kind of, I think, what I want to get to a lot more is just having that kind of garden happen, where it's not everything that's mechanized and man-made, and let it do what it's gonna do.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I love that. So I think we're gonna step away from the live questions for just a little bit. We're gonna come back to those. Right now, I mean, you kind of, it rubs shoulders with what you were just talking about. A few of the different themes you were talking about, but one of my favorite parts of your class is where you do talk about upcycling containers. And like, it was pretty eye-opening for me that there were so many things that could be made into homes for plants, and not only made into a home for plant, but also not turned into trash.
Why was that eye-opening?
I just honestly hadn't thought of it before. And I think like if I was thinking, I was like, okay, I'm going to go have a garden or start a garden, my first thought would be like, go to Home Depot and buy something to put plants in, and then buy some soil and then buy all this stuff. And it was so simple, but so eye opening that you were like, dude, like this thing right here, you can turn into a planter. I'm going to show you how. I just found it really beautiful, and it was simple and eye opening for me. So I'd love to, I mean, if you have anything on hand there that you've turned into a planter, I'd love to see it. And also hear about other things that you've turned into planters if you got them around.
What do we have? Well, I don't know. Can I?
Yeah.
You see where you see this crate here? See this crate?
Yep.
That's a loquat tree. That crate had art in it. It was one of those art shipping crates, which is to me one of the biggest waste in the business there is they make these crates that cost like $800, $1,200 to ship the art and artifacts, and then they just throw them away. Mm-hmm. Brand new wood. They're only used one time to ship one direction. So this crate is now a box, which the beautiful thing is, the middle, I made a piece of wood that has a hole in it. So if you don't want to fill it all the way up with soil, you can fill it only halfway up with soil and put the plant in. I have a dresser drawer here. Let me see, will this bother you guys' eyesight?
No, I'm liking it.
You see that?
Yeah.
So you see, I have sunflowers in there. I have there's some arugula, there's tomatoes, there's celery, there's what else? Collards, purslane, and I have some snap peas, sugar snap. And one of your favorite things is the backpack.
Yeah, I do love the backpack.
So I mean, and I have this. I mean, this was a story. These kids, there's a school around the corner, and the guys, they used to come and they used to hide their drugs in people's, behind our bushes and people's houses around here. And so I saw the guy, he left his backpack in the garden and hid it, and and I said, well, I got something I'm gonna do with this backpack.
That's awesome.
And I got to see him. He was frantic when he came back and his backpack wasn't there. So I'm the one that took it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully he's watching. Hopefully he's gotten his act together, and now he's into gardening, I would hope. So like for that one, what did you do? Was that one as easy as just throw some dirt in it and then?
Yeah, that is literally something like that. It's that easy. You throw some soil in it and that literally, and put your plant in it. I mean, we even have like these bags, these kind of bags that are they work really good, and these have been repurposed out of different kinds of bottles and different things, and they work. They're great, and they last. I think these might even last longer than plastic. you know, these pouches. These are called root pouch.
All right.
You know, and this is the 2-gallon pouch, but they work and they last.
Mm-hmm. All right.
I think we should do a giveaway and give away some of these pouches, and maybe we'll find some tools or something. We might even give away some classes.
Hey, all right. I like the sound of that. We'll have to talk about it.
Yeah.
All right. So like along those lines of turning stuff into planters, we have some pictures that we were going to show you of items that people have lying around their house that they might otherwise throw away. And they would love to hear your thoughts on what they would need to do to turn it into a planter. Because I also know that certain things, it require different setups. So we're hoping to dive into those and see what your thoughts are on how to repurpose and upcycle these things.
Yeah, like, let me say, like with a dresser drawer, generally they're not strong enough to hold the weight of dirt. So you want to reinforce them. You want to reinforce, like the drawer you just saw, I have feet under the bottom, and I've drilled holes in it. I put extra screws in it. I put supports on the side, so it can stand the weight of the soil and the water.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Awesome. All right. So we have this picture of some stuff that this individual had around their house. So if you were to turn one of those into a planter, which would it be? And then what would need to be done, do you think?
Well, I mean, I like the what are those cream, you know, for cream and sugar kind of mugs, the ones with the is that pineapples or strawberries on them?
Oh yeah, it looks like a berry of some sort.
That would be my first, but what you would have to do is you drill a hole in the bottom for drainage. I mean, putting pebbles and sand is cool, but after a while it's gonna get funky. You know, it's gonna start mildewing, so you have to change it. What I would take the one dish, the one at the bottom, and actually put one of those in that dish, and it would catch the runoff of water. That's the one I would do. The other, like the bowl, it looks kind of shallow. Can you do something in it? Yeah, I think that would be a great succulent thing, but still, I think the best thing to do would have is some kind of drainage. And they do have those ceramic tip saw drill blades that you can put holes in those.
Yeah, and especially for succulents, right? Like, you got to make sure that there's drainage in those, because they don't like water quite as much.
They like water, but no,
not quite as much.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So the next one we have is from Heather.
Yep.
All right.
Again, that's cool. I mean, I have some boots that I've put plants in that's been really successful for years. This stuff is still growing. I would throw some soil in there all the way to the toe, and that cloth, you might not even, I would still, just for the hell of it, I would still put, well, it's got the drainage hose on the side of the shoe. So I think just fill it with soil and put you a corn stalk in there, drop a corn seed in there. You have a corn stalk coming out of the shoe.
Love it. So I guess like maybe so rule of thumb is like, if it doesn't have drainage holes, give it some.
Yeah, we'll say, yeah. Because that water is gonna, it's not gonna go anywhere. You know, the excess water that the plant's not taking up, and it can wind up damaging the plant.
Mm-hmm. And then, so you mentioned something earlier that was kind of interesting. So if, like, let's say I'm really precious about something, and I don't want to drill a hole in it, you were saying that you can put stuff in the bottom of it also to...
You can put rocks and sand and different things like that. But again, I mean, you think of like how you make a terrarium.
Mm-hmm.
The same kind of process that you make a terrarium.
All right, cool. We have one more of those, and then we're going to jump back into some live questions. This one's from Laura. What do you think about those, Ron?
Nice for a fire pit, you know, but you can grow something in them on the other. Yeah, you can grow something in them. Yeah, especially if it's at least, let me see, 6, but yeah, they can if that's what you got, make it work. And the thing with that metal, it's never going to go anywhere. It's going to rust, but it's never going to go anywhere. So that actually could be a nice repurposing project.
Mm-hmm.
And it's already got the drainage hose.
Yeah, obviously. But I think also what I think is so interesting is that it doesn't have to be planters. You know,
Right.
like this philosophy can apply to so many different things. And there's a line that you said that I thought was so beautiful, which is like, don't look at what it is, look at what it has the possibility to be.
Yeah, with that, that's what that's about. Look through something, you know. Okay, it's made for that purpose, but what else could it possibly be used for? And if we thought a lot more like that, there wouldn't be so many things that wind up in our waste cycle.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's what happens is when you start thinking like that, you just look at everything differently. And it's so funny. Another person that took the class, you know, she says, "What have you turned my husband into?" He did a video. "Don't throw that away. We could use that as a seed starter." And she's like, "Oh my God!" So they like, it's like, it was so funny.
It's created a monster, but I think exactly the kind of monster that we need right now. Exactly. If I do say so myself.
No, we do. But even, you know, I'm trying, you know, to eliminate, you know, most of the plastics out of my garden. But the garden industry, the way they ship you plants and everything, they're in these plastic containers. But I mean, we could get to the point where we are not so dependent on all this plastic in the garden. It would be a beautiful thing.
I agree. One can hope, for sure. Well, Laura, there you have it. You know, even if you don't need a planter, maybe you were thinking about a fire pit. Now you got it.
Somebody sent me some pictures where they used the washer, the tub from the washer and the dryer.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And they made they painted that, and the same thing Laura can do to those rims. That could look kind of cool. And the thing with the rims, she can actually stack them and make a design. So you can have different colors. You can even paint words on them, depending on what you want to do. And I mean, that's the thing. There is no limit. You know, no one should use your creativity. What do you want to see there? What would you like to see? I mean, yeah, get inspired by something or somebody you see, but also be the person that inspires other people to do things. And with a project like that, it's like, don't look at let me do what this person did. Let me change this up. Let me put my spin on it. And I think that's how we literally inspire each other, when we put our spin on things. It's the same thing with music. What we got, 4 bars or something. I mean, and look how much music we have. Look how you can change that up. We need to start thinking like that.
Yeah, I agree. I hope everybody watching will go out and look around their house. Hopefully not like converting anybody's prized antiques or anything, but
I have a box that some new friends made me. If some they say there's a garden box at your door, click, you know, they made this beautiful box with rabbit grooves and everything, and they made it out of an IKEA bed, the bottom of the IKEA bed frame, the slats from the bed frame, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. So a lot of things, pallets in the streets, if they're not chemically treated, which most of them aren't now. I mean, they're not gonna last, you know, forever, but still, you can get really, really creative. And there's so many projects that you can find on different sites where they show you how to use these to make all kinds of different kind of furnitures and planters and wall hangings. Yeah, it's just like, let's use up some of this so-called trash.
Yeah, I agree. We're going to transition to just a couple more live questions before we take off. And for those of you who are just joining us in the kind of the back half of our conversation, we're here with Ron Finley from MasterClass Live. We're talking about his MasterClass, gardening, and life in general. So kicking it over to some more live questions. Okay. How do you effectively / safely transition seedlings grown indoors to an outdoor environment? Mine keep dying within days of being placed outside, and that comes from Laura.
Well, Laura, hopefully you're not moving them too early, and a lot of times they go into shock. And hopefully you're not burying them too deep in the ground, and that might be a problem too. Especially if I had that problem with watermelon, because the watermelon always gets real skinny right where the root, where where the root ball is, and then they break. That's the only thing I could say there, and leave soil on them. Don't take all the soil off of the roots. A lot of times what I do, because I'll start a ton of seeds just in a flat. I'll get one of those the baskets that you carry your 16 packs of plants in when you buy them, the 4 inches plants. And so I'll take those, because they throw them away a lot of times, and I'll just put some paper on the bottom, and I'll put soil in there, and I'll just throw seeds all over there. And so what comes up, and I use a spoon when the things come up, I use a spoon to dig them up and separate them, so that you're not really disturbing the other plants that are there. So I would try that. I would try to use a spoon, and don't shake all the soil off of the plant.
All right. Rookie mistake, potentially. Shaking off all the soil.
And don't, make sure it's, don't let them get dried out.
Mm-hmm.
Because you take them and they're dried out, then you reposition them. So there's a lot of little things like that. But one, it might be planting them too deep.
All right. Good things to keep in mind.
Yeah.
And so this one comes from Stephanie, and she's asking, what are good beginner plants, preferably in the edible arena? So like if somebody's kind of setting out, trying to start growing their own food, they just watch your class, aside from the ones, or maybe including the ones that you talk about in your class, what are the ones that you're like, this is where to start, I think?
I mean, edibles, lettuce, kale, almighty kale. These things are easy to grow. And like something like kale is kind of hard to screw up. But if you want something fast and easy, lettuce, all kinds of different lettuce will grow. What grows, one of the fastest plants to grow though are radishes. They grow pretty fast.
Only they tasted better.
But you have so many different kinds now. Some of those watermelon radishes, they're so beautiful. The colors on them. But yeah, and they're healthy as hell. And even celery, is easy to grow. And then once you grow it, it just winds up everywhere. And it pops up all over the place.
Well, good thing, because you kind of feel like you got to eat a lot of that stuff to get full. So the fact that it's everywhere is not the worst thing in the world. Great. Let's see. What is, this one comes from Milo. He says, what is the best meal that you've made from your garden?
The best meal that I've made from my garden. Two things. Vegetarian chili comes from, I thought, and then also, I eat from my garden a lot, and I'll just do a medley of all kinds of stuff, where I have collard greens and Okinawan spinach and New Zealand spinach and purple kale and curly kale and 3 different kinds of chards, and I'll just mix that up, cut it up, mix it up, saute it, and then I'll either put it in an omelet with peppers and onions and garlic, and that's like kind of a go-to, and that's kind of been my go-to during this lockdown.
Yeah. Well, I think that's, a lot of people are finding a lot of encouragement and information in your MasterClass that's especially applicable kind of in the current situation that we find ourselves in.
Yeah, but then there's the berries that are around, the strawberries, where you don't have to cook them. But I did, and I guess I need to do this PSA. Don't grill your bananas for don't grill your bananas for your peanut butter and jelly sandwich when you don't have any clothes on.
Is that based on personal experience? You had a run-in?
I got a friend that did.
Oh, yeah. Ask him for a friend. All right. Well, I mean, I think that's a super practical thing, because I was literally doing that right now.
Don't cook without. Yeah, it's not a good look.
All right. Well, so on that note, I think, that brings our time together to an end, Ron. Aside from the PSA that you just shared, is there anything else that you'd like to share with the viewers, or
I want to thank the viewers for being here, and I want to thank the people that have watched the masterclass and the jokes and love that people have shared with me. And hopefully we'll get to do another masterclass and go a lot deeper than what we have. And I appreciate you, because I personally, like, I don't know if this is too lightweight. I mean, we got to get people where they're at. And I love the response. Please keep responding. Please keep sending pictures. Please keep sharing. And that's I mean, this is how I think we're going to change humanity. This is how we're going to change the world. And that's what we're out here to do. And I just want to say thank you. That's what I want to do. I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for giving me your eyes and your ears and your living room. I mean, some of the stuff where people have sent me and they're literally talking to their TV screens like they're in a movie. Yeah, that's what I'm talking. Yeah, dude. Yeah, like preach.
I love that.
It's been a beautiful thing to me to be able to share this. And I mean, I just want to bring humanity back. Aside from everything we're doing, it's like we all have the same blood. And we all breathe in the same air. Let's make this better for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's and I hope this time away from what we're doing has showed you what is truly valuable. And it's not money, and it's not diamonds, and it's not all that kind of stuff. I think a lot of things this is gonna wind up changing a lot of people's lives. This whole pandemic, quarantine situation, and the fact that now in LA we have some of the best air in the world, from being some of the worst air in the world. And what did we do? We eliminated humans being on the planet, basically out. And so that shows you, who's the real vibe. We got to take care of our mother, and then we will be taking care of ourselves. So I want everybody, I want to say thank you again. And please start growing some of your own food, and definitely do it collectively. Where with your neighbors, and so you don't have to grow everything, because Martha has it. She's got the pears for you, or the apples, John's got the tomatoes. So that's what I'm seeing in the community, in the masterclass community, is what needs to happen. And I'm truly honored to be a part of this.
Well, thank you. I was honored to work on your class. I was equally honored to be able to share this conversation with you. So thank you again.
Thank you.
And so as a reminder to everybody out there, MasterClass Live is something that we're doing on a weekly basis. So be sure to tune in next Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific. I will be moderating once again, and I'm going to be having a conversation with the amazing poker player, Daniel Negreanu. Finally, let's keep the conversation going. Tweet your favorite MasterClass Live learning with the hashtag MasterClass Live. And for our members, hop into the MasterClass community and talk about what you've learned there. Thank you so much, everybody. And thank you, Ron, once again.
Thank you, and MasterClass. You guys take care. Everybody be safe.